If you hadn't been sneaking around up there trying to spy on me...
This jungle is my home.
There was a show in the 1980s that began with a planet dying and ended 4 seasons later with its survivors finally rebuilding what they'd lost. Every Saturday, kids sat down for battles between cat-like warriors, a mummified sorcerer, and every kind of creature Third Earth could throw at them. This is the entire story of ThunderCats. The story begins. Thundera falls. The world of ThunderCats begins with a catastrophe. The planet Thundera, home of the Thunderians, a race of cat-like humanoid people, is dying.
Not a thing, Tigra. Strange.
Look! Signs of a struggle.
The planet is tearing itself apart, and the Thunderians must evacuate or perish. A fleet of ships, the Thunder Fleet, launches into space carrying what remains of their civilization. Among those who escape are the nobles of Thundera, the ThunderCats themselves. Almost immediately, the fleet is attacked by the mutants of Plundar, the ancient enemies of the Thunderians. The mutants destroy most of the ships in the fleet, but spare the flagship because they believe the legendary Sword of Omens is on board, and they want it. The Sword of Omens is the most sacred artifact of Thundera. Embedded in its hilt is the Eye of Thundera, a mystical gemstone that is the source of the ThunderCats' power. The mutants damage the flagship heavily, but when they attempt to board it, the Eye of Thundera drives them back.
To get to the galaxy we were headed for, the best we can do is this.
The damage to the ship means the original destination is no longer reachable. The ThunderCats are forced to set a new course toward a distant planet called Third Earth. The journey will take far longer than planned. The ThunderCats enter suspended animation in individual capsules so that they can survive the trip. There is one problem. Someone has to pilot the ship. The eldest of the ThunderCats, Yaga, a wise and powerful warrior who serves as the group's spiritual guide, volunteers. He takes the helm and pilots the ship toward Third Earth, alone, while the others sleep. Yaga dies of old age during the journey, but he gets them there. His spirit persists, appearing to Lion-O throughout the series as a guiding voice from beyond death.
Not a place anyone would visit.
All the better. Climb aboard.
On board the flagship, in a suspension capsule that malfunctions during the journey, is the young Lord of the ThunderCats, Lion-O. His capsule slows his aging rather than stopping it, and when the ThunderCats awaken on Third Earth after 10 galacto years, Lion-O has grown from a child into a man's body, but his mind and emotional development are still those of the 12-year-old boy who got into that capsule. He is, in every important sense, a child in an adult's physique, trying to lead a team of experienced warriors while still learning what leadership means. Alongside him are Chitara, the fastest ThunderCat and the only woman among the original group, who also possesses a limited psychic ability, Tigra, the architect and scientist of the group.
Any more of the fruit, Silky?
Whose bolo whip can make him invisible. Panthro, the strongest of the ThunderCats and their engineer, responsible for building and maintaining their vehicles and technology. Wily Kit and Wily Cat, the young twins who are the closest in age to Lion-O's actual psychological state. And Snarf, a small, caring creature who was Lion-O's nursemaid on Thundera, and who worries about him constantly and vocally. Their ship crashes on Third Earth. They are stranded. They are the survivors of a dead planet, and they have arrived in someone else's world. Third Earth, building a home and finding an enemy. Third Earth is a world of extraordinary variety. It is home to dozens of different peoples and cultures, some primitive, some technologically advanced, some magical.
Strike at him before he gets it back.
There are burbles, small robotic bear-like beings with gentle natures who become among the ThunderCats' closest allies from very early on. There are the warrior maidens, a tribe of human women who live in the forests and defend their territory with skill and fierceness. There are the wallows, a peaceful agrarian people who often find themselves caught between the ThunderCats and the forces of evil. There is Snowman of Hook Mountain, an enormous figure who lives in the frozen peaks and becomes a recurring ally. There are the fish-like Tuskas, and the gentle Bulkins, and the large bear-like Brutemen, and many others scattered across the planet's varied landscape. Together with the Burbles and other allied peoples, the ThunderCats construct the Cat's Lair.
Care that your dream does not turn into a nightmare.
A massive fortress shaped like a cat's head, built into a rocky hillside, which serves as their headquarters, their home, and their command center. Panthro builds the Thunder Tank from salvaged components, giving the team a ground vehicle of tremendous power and versatility. The group establishes itself on Third Earth gradually but firmly, building relationships and making the planet something like a home, even though it is not, and can never entirely be Thundera. But they are not alone in their alien intrusion on this world. The mutants, led by the reptilian Slythe alongside Monkian and Jackalman, have tracked the ThunderCats to Third Earth and constructed their own base, Castle Plundar, on the darker side of the planet. And Third Earth itself has an ancient, malevolent presence that has ruled through dark power for centuries.
Star will do the rest. How will he bring them here?
That presence is Mum-Ra. He is a mummified sorcerer of immense power who lives within a black pyramid, a structure that stands on Third Earth as a monument to everything dark and ancient. In his decayed, bandaged form, Mum-Ra moves slowly and looks almost helpless, a deteriorated ancient figure muttering in a crumbling shrine. But he serves 4 entities known as the Ancient Spirits of Evil, elemental forces whose statues line the inside of his pyramid. And when he calls upon them, he transforms himself into Mum-Ra the Ever-Living, an enormous, powerful, terrifying figure of supernatural strength. His weakness, and one of the stranger quirks of the show,
A good dose of radioactivity will cool them down.
is that Mum-Ra cannot bear the sight of his own reflection. Seeing his own image drives him back to his pyramid and forces him to return to his dormant state. This limitation becomes a recurring tool the ThunderCats use against him, sometimes straightforwardly and sometimes with creative variations as the series goes on. Mum-Ra has held dominion over Third Earth for ages. The arrival of the ThunderCats, with their power and their moral code, the Code of Thundera, built on the values of justice, truth, honor, and loyalty, represents a direct threat to his power. He recruits the mutants as his foot soldiers and begins an extended campaign to destroy the ThunderCats and claim the Eye of Thundera for himself.
Without the enchanted helmet.
Season 1, Lion-O grows up on Third Earth. The first season is the longest, running 65 episodes through 1985. Much of it operates as a series of self-contained adventures that explore Third Earth and its many inhabitants, while the central conflict between the ThunderCats and the forces of Mum-Ra and the mutants continues in the background. Lion-O's arc across the season is the emotional spine of the show. He holds the Sword of Omens, which he is still learning to use. The sword can extend its blade on command, fire energy beams, and project a visual signal, the ThunderCat signal, into the sky to summon the team from anywhere on Third Earth. Most importantly, it grants Lion-O's sight beyond sight, the ability to see at great distances, perceive hidden truths, and detect threats before they materialize.
The Sword of Omens, it's warning us.
But the sword's power is tied to the worthiness of its bearer, and Lion-O must earn that worthiness through experience rather than simply by holding it. A recurring tension across the first season is the gap between Lion-O's instincts, which are impulsive and childlike, and the expectations placed on him as Lord of the Thundercats. His teammates, all of them older, all of them more experienced, must follow a leader who in many ways is still a boy. Tigra is the voice of strategy and reason. Chitara is fiercely capable and protective. Panthro is blunt and pragmatic. The show handles this dynamic with more care than might be expected, given that it was built as much as anything else around selling toys. Lion-O learns from failure as often as from success.
A special interest in that one.
Proper procedure is to run him down.
And the victories mean something because they're genuinely earned. The Code of Thundera, justice, truth, honor, and loyalty, runs through every episode as a guiding principle. Episodes typically end with a brief moment in which one of the Thundercats reflects on which value made the difference in that day's conflict, or how a failure to uphold it created the problem in the first place. It was a deliberate storytelling choice, and it gave the show a moral consistency that children could follow and absorb across a 65-episode season. Mum-Ra's schemes throughout the first season vary in ambition and method. He disguises himself regularly, taking on the appearance of allies, strangers, even deceased Thunderians, to manipulate Lion-O and create conflict within the group.
Brilliant idea, Snarf! Chitara, Tigra, elevate the sponge directly overhead.
He enlists the help of Third Earth's many strange and dangerous creatures. He seeks out artifacts of power that can be turned against the Thundercats. And, always, the mutants are somewhere in the mix, usually failing at the task they were given, usually causing chaos in the wrong direction, but always persistent. One significant structural milestone in the first season is the trial sequence, in which Lion-O must prove himself worthy of his title as Lord of the Thundercats through a series of challenges against each of his teammates. He faces Tigra's cunning, Panthro's physical dominance, Chitara's speed, and the guile of Wily Kit and Wily Cat in turn. These episodes deepen the team dynamics and give each character a moment to establish what they stand for independently of the group.
And we're starting to run short.
We brought a supply from Thundera, didn't we?
Lion-O does not always succeed by brute force. Often the lesson is about thinking differently, about using the values of the Code of Thundera rather than his physical strength or the sword's power. Vulture Man, the fourth mutant and the only one with any real inventive ability, is introduced during the first season. He is a schemer who sometimes aligns with Slythe, Monkian, and Jackalman, and sometimes pursues his own independent plans, usually involving some kind of technology he has cobbled together. His ambitions regularly outpace his competence, which becomes a reliable source of conflict and occasional dark comedy. By the end of the first season, the Thundercats have established themselves firmly on Third Earth. They have allies across the planet, a home, vehicles, and a growing understanding of their world.
That's Tigra's whip.
I know. I found it floating in the moat.
Where is he?
Lion-O has grown, though his development is ongoing. Mum-Ra and the mutants remain persistent and undefeated, but they have been pushed back at every critical moment, and the cat's lair stands. The 1986 TV movie ThunderCats Ho! Between the first and second seasons in 1986, a 5-part story was produced and aired as a television movie. ThunderCats Ho! The story begins with Lion-O having recurring nightmares about Thunderians who were left behind when Thundera was destroyed. Countrymen he couldn't save. Jaga appears to him in a vision and reveals a remarkable thing. 3 Thunderians did survive.
Be coming down in very dangerous territory. So when you land, get out of the ship and hide.
Pumira, Bengali, and Lynx-O escaped the destruction of Thundera aboard a Burble spacecraft, but the explosion damaged the ship's fuel reserves. They had just enough power to reach Third Earth, but not enough to land near any known settlement. They came down on a remote, deserted island where they have been living and surviving alongside the Burbles who rescued them. Lion-O tells the other Thundercats, and they set out to find these survivors. But Mum-Ra, scheming as always, learns of the search and moves to intercept them. Under Mum-Ra's orders, the Berserkers, a group of mercenary pirates, capture the 3 stranded Thunderians and take them to Fire Rock Mountain. Fire Rock Mountain is a place saturated with Thundranium, a mineral that drains the power and physical strength of any Thunderian.
This stuff is light as air, but stronger than steel.
Functioning essentially as their kryptonite. The rescue mission is difficult. Lion-O loses the Sword of Omens at one point. The mutants arrive to complicate matters further. Lion-O is nearly killed, but through the combined effort of the Thundercats and some unexpected help from Hachiman, a Japanese warrior whose code of honor ultimately overcomes Mum-Ra's manipulation, the 3 Thunderians are freed. At the end, Lion-O performs an anointment ceremony and formally welcomes Pumira, Bengali, and Lynx-O into the Thundercats. The story appeared to conclude with Mum-Ra's destruction, though when the full second season began the following year, it became clear he had merely survived in a weakened state. Season 2, New Allies, New Enemies, and the Loonatacs. The second full season began in 1987.
To destroy the Tower of Omen.
With a 5-part miniseries called Mum-Ra Lives, written by Leonard Starr and setting up the new threats and dynamics that would define the season. Mum-Ra, restored to power after apparently being destroyed at the close of ThunderCats Ho, introduces a new faction into the conflict, the Loonatacs. The Loonatacs are a group of villains from the Plundar lunar system, brutal, ruthless, and equipped with their own flying fortress called Sky Tomb. Mum-Ra releases them from their imprisonment within the moons of Plundar to bolster the forces of darkness, and they immediately begin causing chaos, raiding settlements, taking slaves, and operating with an aggression that even the mutants rarely matched.
We can't outrun them. We'll have to hold them off.
Among the Loonatacs are Luna, a diminutive but ferociously cruel leader who rides on the back of her enormous enforcer, Amuk. Alluro, who uses a psychic crystal to manipulate the minds of his targets. Tug-Mug, a gravitational warrior. Red-Eye, a silent and formidable fighter. And Chilla, who can generate intense cold and freeze anything in her path. Unlike the mutants, the Loonatacs are not entirely under Mum-Ra's control. They have their own agenda and their own ambitions, and they answer to nobody entirely. This makes them a more unpredictable threat. They sometimes coordinate with Mum-Ra's plans, and sometimes simply pursue whatever serves them, which occasionally puts them in conflict with the mutants, as well as the Thundercats.
If we even hope to rescue our Thunderian countrymen.
To deal with this expanded threat, the new Thundercats, Pumira, Bengali, and Lynx-O, are stationed at a new base called the Tower of Omens, positioned in a different part of Third Earth from the Cat's Lair. It functions as a monitoring station and rapid response outpost for threats coming from the darker regions of the planet. Bengali had already proved his indispensability by reforging the Sword of Omens after Tug-Mug shattered the blade during the opening miniseries, a repair only a Thunderian blacksmith could accomplish. Lynx-O, despite being blind from the destruction of Thundera, navigates and fights through his enhanced senses and a braille board device that lets him track threats in the surrounding area. Pumira is a healer and a fierce athlete, capable of extraordinary physical feats.
Well, this is not possible.
I shudder to show you this, Hachiman.
Her knowledge of Thunderian medicine becomes an asset that the original team never had. The second season maintained the episodic structure of the first, while introducing more interconnected storylines and a broader cast of recurring characters. Mum-Ra continued his campaign to acquire the Eye of Thundera, tried multiple times to destroy the Thundercats through disguise and manipulation, and found himself increasingly frustrated by failure. The Lunatics operated in their own orbit, sometimes alongside Mum-Ra, and sometimes against everyone's interests. The season deepened the mythology of Third Earth considerably and gave the show a complexity it hadn't quite had before. Season 3, The Treasure of Thundera. The third season, in 1988, opened with the 5-part story Thunder Cubs.
Nearer to your demise, Thundercats.
Written by Peter Lawrence, which began with an unusual concept. Mum-Ra uses his powers to temporarily transform the adult Thundercats back into children. But the story's more important development was something larger. Mum-Ra, searching ancient records, discovers that he can reconstruct Thundera, or at least what remains of it in the cosmos. When he does, he finds within the debris of the dead planet both the Sword of Plundar, the evil counterpart to the Sword of Omens, whose corruption had actually been the cause of Thundera's original destruction long ago when Jaga buried it in the planet's core to prevent its misuse. And the Treasure of Thundera. The Treasure of Thundera is a collection of mystical artifacts and relics, including the Book of Omens.
Where am I? What happened?
Lion-O, you're all right.
A tome containing all the knowledge and secrets of the Thundercat civilization. In the chaos of Thunder Cubs, the treasure is scattered across what is now being called New Thundera, and this scattering establishes the season's central arc. Both the Thundercats and the forces of evil are searching for the pieces of the treasure of Thundera across the newly reformed world of New Thundera. This was something new for the series. Previous seasons had largely been episodic, with each episode telling its own story and returning to essentially the same status quo by the end. Season 3 introduced genuine serialization, a story thread that ran through the entire season, with episodes building on each other and the treasure hunt driving events forward. The Thundercats, the Mutants, the Lunatics, and Mum-Ra all alternated between Third Earth and New Thundera.
Finds the treasure of Thundera, Lion-O, before he can use the Sword of Plunder.
Racing to find and claim the scattered items. The season ended with a true finale episode, The Last Day, in which the ancient spirits of evil, having grown impatient with Mum-Ra's endless failures, issue an ultimatum. He has one last chance to destroy the Thundercats by sunset. If he fails, both he and the forces under his command, the Mutants and the Lunatics, will be removed from Third Earth forever. To demonstrate that they mean it, they make Mum-Ra's dog, Mamut, disappear before his eyes. Mum-Ra makes his attempt. He fails. The ancient spirits of evil keep their word. Mum-Ra is exiled to the farthest corner of the universe.
For failure!
And the Mutants and Lunatics are banished from Third Earth as well. Season 4, New Thundera and the Final Chapter. The fourth and final season began in 1989 with another 5-part story, Return to Thundera, and it represented the most significant change in the show's geography since the original crash landing on Third Earth. With their enemies banished from Third Earth and the planet itself now reformed as New Thundera, the Thundercats make a decision. They return to their homeworld to rebuild their civilization. New Thundera is not the peaceful, stable world the old Thundera once was. It is raw and volatile, recovering from the ancient destruction, its surface still unstable in places, its history still scattered across its terrain in the form of artifacts and ruins the Thundercats must locate and preserve. but it is home, and that matters more than the difficulty. Before leaving Third Earth, the Thundercats destroy Mum-Ra's Black Pyramid, believing they are finally free of it. This was a mistake. The destruction of his pyramid enrages the ancient spirits of evil to such a degree that they intervene directly, bringing Mum-Ra back from his cosmic exile, restoring his power, and installing him in a new pyramid on New Thundera. Mum-Ra, back and angrier than ever, resumes his campaign against the Thundercats on their home turf. The mutants and the lunatics each make a brief return for single episodes, but the fourth season is largely a direct conflict between the Thundercats working to establish a new society on New Thundera,
Snarf will come through for us, Chitara. I'm sure he will.
and Mum-Ra working to prevent it. The season has a more focused quality than its predecessors. The familiar faces of Third Earth, the Warrior Maidens, the Burbles, Snowman of Hook Mountain, are largely absent. The world of New Thundera is newer, stranger, still being discovered. Other Thunderians who survived the original catastrophe make their way to New Thundera during this season, filling out the population of a civilization being rebuilt from the ground up. The final episode of the entire series, The Book of Omens, aired on September 29, 1989. In it, the Thundercats recover and unlock the Book of Omens itself, the lost repository of all Thunderian knowledge. Within the book, they find a path to the treasure of Thundera, and by following it,
Captain Bragg's circus train and free the mutants. They can take care of.
they are able to stabilize New Thundera at last. The planet's surface becomes calm. The ancient instability that has defined it since the original catastrophe is finally resolved. The tumultuous world of New Thundera becomes, at last, peaceful and whole. It is, in its quiet way, an ending that honors what the show had always been about. Survivors of a destroyed world refusing to accept that destruction as the final word and building something lasting from what remained. The world they built around the story. ThunderCats ran for 4 seasons and 130 episodes in total, from its pilot on January 23, 1985, to its finale on September the 29th, 1989.
Thundera is our home too. We must overcome Mum-Ra and help our people come home.
The first season had 65 episodes. Each of the 3 subsequent seasons had 20, each opening with a 5-part miniseries. In the gap between the first and second season, the Rankin Bass team developed Silverhawks, another animated series with a similar format and some of the same creative personnel, which aired in 1986. The show was originally distributed by Telepictures Corporation, which merged with Lorimar Productions in 1986. In 1989, Warner Brothers purchased Lorimar Telepictures, and Warner Brothers has owned the rights to ThunderCats ever since. The show later aired on Cartoon Network as part of the Toonami programming block, introducing a new generation to the ThunderCats in the late 1990s and early 2000s.
We did the best we could in the Great Beneath. We patched up the gyroscope's control system.
Marvel Comics produced a ThunderCats comic series through its Star Comics imprint from 1985 to 1988, running 24 issues. Marvel UK published its own expanded version with 129 issues over the same period. A toy line was produced by LJN Toys, and ThunderCats merchandise, action figures, playsets, vehicles, the Thunder Tank, the Cat's Lair playset, became among the most sought-after toys of the mid-1980s. The first season alone cost $15 million to produce. In 2011, Warner Brothers Animation produced a new ThunderCats series for Cartoon Network, animated by Japanese studio Studio 4 Degrees Celsius in a more modern anime-influenced style.
It's coming from over there!
Retract, Whisker.
That series reimagined the premise significantly, placing the Thunderians already on Third Earth from the beginning, rather than arriving as refugees, and presented a darker, more complex narrative than the original. The 2011 series was canceled after one season due to merchandise sales difficulties. The original 1985 series, however, has never really gone away. The voice of Mum-Ra, Earl Hammond's thunderous invocation of the ancient spirits of evil, still resonates with everyone who heard it as a child. Larry Kenney's Lion-O remains the defining version of the character, and the story of a young lord who grew up too fast, on a world that wasn't his own, trying to be worthy of a sword and a title he inherited in the middle of a catastrophe. That story held up every time. If you enjoyed this one, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more where this came from.